Welcome to the Imagine What's Possible podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Webb, Director of Enrollment Management and Financial Aid at Flint Health School. With over 20 years of experience fielding parents' most important questions about education, student potential, and the path to a fulfilling experience for the entire family. In each episode of Imagine What's Possible, we talk to experts here at Flint Hill who share their knowledge and practical insights on what you can be doing right now to actively support your child's educational journey. Today, we'll talk to Jess Henry, the director of the lower school, about finding a school that has a strong parent-school partnership that will lead to the best results for your child. Jess, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. To get us started, will you please share a bit more about yourself and your background and what's brought you here to Flint Hill and your journey here at Flint Hill?
Sure. I worked in public schools for a few years, and I had a friend who introduced me to independent schools, and she was like, "You have to come check out Flint Hill. It's amazing." I was just a young, wild and free woman back then. And I was like, okay. And I came by and I was at the upper school. It was when the upper school had just been built. And I was like, this is amazing. And as soon as I saw a math opening, I went for it. And I left my public school to come work at Flint Hill. And it has just been amazing ever since that moment in time. I taught in the upper school for about 12 years in math. And then when the math department chair became available in the lower school, I was like, this is my dream job. And I did that for a few years. And I just fell in love with the lower school. Everything that happens here is magical and is the heart of why education is so special. And after the lower school director had stepped out, that was my opportunity, and I just had to take the moment and apply for that position, and now I'm here.
And we are so glad you're here.
Thank you.
From beginning to end, that's about 20 years experience in education, right?
It's about 20 years. A few other things happened. I had 4 children in that time span, and I have one or two at each division, and it has been a true treasure to be a part of their educational journey.
Well, we're so excited to have you and draw from your expertise here as we talk about school-parent partnership today. To get us started today, before we dive into talking more about parent-school partnership, can you tell us why we chose this topic?
Yeah. I recently have been working with a lot of families, and I realized how important it is to have communication between the school and the family for the best success of our students. And it really came to the forefront at the start of this school year when we had a student who was having some rough days, and we couldn't really name it. We couldn't figure out exactly what was happening or what the issues were. So I started, I'm a math person, so I started looking at the patterns, and it turned out on Wednesdays, that's when the breakdowns were happening every Wednesday. And so we called the parents and we brought them in. We brought counseling in, and we just said, what's happening on Tuesday night? Because Wednesday is really hard. And they shared with us that Tuesday night they had a very the child had a very intense practice on Tuesday nights. That was 2 to 3 hours. And we worked with the family and asked if they could talk to the coach to see if maybe it could be moved to a non-school night, like a Friday night, so the student could rest as long as they needed to on Saturday, and so that all the school days could be a positive experience for our student. But it had to be a real team to get to that point. We had to have the parents and the teachers and administration kind of working together. And when all those pieces came together, it was a quick and easy fix, but everyone had to be part of the conversation. So having a strong school-parent partnership really is key to having a successful year and years for our students.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that example, and that really highlights why it's so important at schools overall and certainly here at Flint Hill. And a lot of our listeners are parents, and parents naturally really want what's very best for their children. And could you tell us why that example certainly illustrated it, but to go a little bit further, how does having a really strong parent-school partnership boost confidence and growth in students year over year?
I think that students know who is supporting them and who isn't. And if they can see that we are working as a team with the family, they understand that those support structures are in place. And they know that there's a team working for just them
Mhm.
and that we're on the same team. We're not working against each other. And I think that's really important for our students to see is that my parent and my teacher and all my teachers are on the same team. And that's me. That's my team. Everyone's in favor of me being as successful as I can be. And I think that gives them comfort. I think that gives them the ability to loosen up and be themselves and follow their interests and know that they're part of a supportive community.
Yes, and I can certainly see that here at our school, both with my parent hat on too, because I have kids here also, and I
Yeah.
think it's really visible being in this community to both parents and kids that there's a unified team really out there for each student. Now, for parents that might be looking at different schools or might be wondering about their school and other school opportunities out there. That's okay. Um, so when parents are looking at different schools, how can they tell from a visit, a tour, an event, an information session, talking with an admission officer, talking with an administrator, any of these things that families engage in, either with their own school or looking at other schools? What are the indicators that they know that partnership's going to be there, that there's going to be a whole team unified behind their kiddo?
I think that you should look for the way the students interact with each other when you're in the classroom or when you see them passing in the halls. I think that the way the teachers greet the children and greet each other says a lot about the type of community and the type of atmosphere that we're trying to build or the school culture that we're trying to build.
So when we're talking about school parent partnership,
Yeah.
it's a really common word, really common term that's used in obviously schools, private schools. But what does it really mean? So when parents hear that word, when our listeners are thinking about what that really means, like what does a healthy school parent partnership look like on a day-to-day basis?
I think it looks a lot like trust. And
Yeah.
um, I think we sometimes lose focus a little bit that our teachers are professionals. They went to school for this. Many of them at our school have 2 degrees in working with children. So really trying to trust their process and understand their goals. It also could look like meeting with your teacher before school begins at the start of the year. Like we do that at Flint Hill. We have a Hopes and Dreams conference. And we need to make sure that we are on the same page, that we are aligned in what our expectations are for the school and for the home. I also think on the home front, it means speaking positively about your teachers in front of your students. You know, it's easy to say, oh, I can't believe she did that or he did that. To agree with your student, to try to support them and get through tough times. But I think it's also important to say, I'm sure there is a reason. You know, your teacher is so bright, just like you are, and I'm sure that there is a reason that they think this might be the best book for you or why this, homework was selected for your class. Really trusting the process and supporting your teachers in a positive way on the home front. And also, if you do have questions as a family, it's so important to ask because, the story we tell ourselves in our head is really often way off than what's actually happening. So reach out to your teacher, communicate with your students' teacher, and know that they are also, want the best for your child just like you do.
Right, right. And I want to pull on that a little bit more because we talked a lot about parent-school partnership and what it looks like for each of them. And so a lot of parents out there want to be a strong partner with their school too. They want to show
Yeah.
up to the partnership in the best way possible.
Mhm.
Could you talk a little bit about what that looks like? Say a parent is really anxious about something going on at school or a story their kiddo's telling them,
Mhm.
or they're worried about a certain academic area, or worried that they're not understanding something, or it's a little different than they thought it would be.
Yeah.
How do they channel that in a way that really supports that healthy partnership? How do they show up as strong partners themselves when having that conversation?
I think it's always fair to voice concerns from from a parent perspective to the teacher. So if you are having concerns, of course, reach out. I think from a parent lens, it's important that you don't get caught up in measuring your student against others. And I
Mm.
think that's often the underlying issue when we feel angst or haste about certain situations. It's really important that we share with our student the importance of personal growth and not growth in comparison to everyone around us. Of course, it's important to reach the benchmarks, but knowing the percentile or knowing where you line up, if a group was 100, where you would be in that line, really isn't the most important piece. The most important piece is understanding your child at that moment in time, and then at the next phase, checking in with them, in the same area and seeing if there's been growth over time. Because that's really the point of school, is to promote student growth and well-being. And I think a lot of angst and nervousness on the parent side would subside a little bit
Mhm.
if we focus more on individual growth instead of comparison to our student, to our neighbor. And we want to encourage our students to celebrate their neighbor's successes. And it can be difficult to celebrate a success when at home the message is comparison. So we want to teach our students, hey, we are worried about personal growth, so let's make sure that you're doing the best job you can do, and focus on that lens.
Wonderful, wonderful. And similarly, you mentioned, of course, parents know their kids very well.
Mhm.
And at private schools, and particularly Flint Hill, we talk a lot and live it day to day. Each child really being known well by the adults
Yes,
in their
yes,
community, their teachers, even their peers.
right.
Can you talk a little bit about why really knowing each child very well
Mhm.
is so important for the growth of each
Yeah,
child?
yeah. Um, when our students know that we care about them and there's a personal connection there, like we have here, we talk about relationships being important. Um, some of the armor comes off our students, and they feel safe, and they feel like, okay, I can be myself here. And when we feel comfortable, we are confident. And
Mhm.
so, dropping some of that armor, because our teachers have a relationship with our students, they understand them, they support their growth. Um, then our students can show up as their best selves in the classroom because they feel comfortable, they feel confident, they feel safe. That's why we spend so much time at the start of the year on building those classroom communities in the lower school,
Mhm.
so that when we're ready for the deep learning and the high engagement and the complex thinking, they can be comfortable in their space to go to that next step.
Right, right. And you certainly know that well on the admission side too. When you and I are having conversations
Yep.
about a composition, a lot of that involves really getting to know the students as
Yep.
well as we can through the
Mm-hmm.
admission process,
Yep.
and then seeing how that looks with each of those students together and with their teacher and course placements, and how important that is to the process. When families are in admissions processes or they're in their school search process, are there questions that you recommend that they'd ask to their prospective potential schools where that will help them to gauge whether a school is going to be a good fit for their family, and particularly whether that school is going to show up as the type of partner that you and I are talking about today?
Yes, I think it's important that you have a realistic conversation with yourself and identify what your goals are for your child.
Mhm.
Because if you're aligned with your school community and you can partner, it's going to be very successful for your student to grow up in that environment, right? But if you're not as honest with yourself and you think that you are open to certain ideas or certain concepts, but in actuality, you're more aligned with, I would like to know what their ranking is or what their percentile is, then you need to be true to yourself
Mhm.
and go to a school that is going to give you that information, because you will end up being disappointed on the other end when that information isn't given to you. So really, it's more about looking inward to make sure that as an adult that you're philosophically aligned with the school and the school culture.
Right, because the strength of the partnership is in the alignment.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
so, also in the admission process, we're looking for partnership, and
Yep.
that really means we're looking for alignment with our values, our philosophies,
Yeah.
our vision, and all of that,
Mhm.
because only when we're aligned in that way can we show up to serve the student well.
Exactly. And, take a deep look at those pamphlets that you get that say what the vision and the mission and the portrait of the student or the portrait of the graduate are going to be, because those are the goals of every division.
Right.
And if you're going to be in that, in that arena from kindergarten to senior year, you got to be aligned with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking the
Yeah.
time, Jess. It's always so much fun to spend some time with you, and this was certainly a fun topic to do that on. So thanks for letting us draw from your expertise today, and I'm sure our listeners will really appreciate hearing from you as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.